What is going on, everyone? Badger here. Make sure to like and sub, and let's get into this. Part 4 of the D Files. We've made it. We've made it this far. It's been a long story. Thankfully, Alan Ng and Chris Gore from Film Threat, they've been covering all this stuff, especially the WGA and all the leaked emails from them and that culture of fear that we have going on. It's all the same DEI infiltration, the neo-Marxism, all the stuff from Sweet Baby Inc. Same shit, all connected. This is specifically, of course, the animated side of Disney. So here we go. Alan Ng, The D-Files Part 4, A Slow Death in a Strange World. In the last edition of the D-Files, we see that the pieces are now in place to radically change the very foundation of Disney animation leading up to the Disney 100 celebration in 2023. After John Lasseter's firing, and with the Me Too movement in full rage, Jennifer Lee took over Disney Animation with the goal of 50-50 equity in animation. Lee achieved her goal by hiring activist artists from social media sites like Tumblr. Yes, and many of my fellow YouTubers were very delighted to hear this for the first time, thanks to Alan Ng bringing this. That's where a lot of people came from, Tumblr. The result should have been a happy work environment of diverse male and female artists creating Disney magic in perfect harmony. Instead, what Lee created, whether intentional or otherwise, was a toxic work environment of artists walking on eggshells, in fear of being outed by Lee's snitches. For the veteran animators, the old white guys, remember Male and Pale is stale, they were left with the choice to either quit for mental health reasons or get fired for the most minor infractions, or shut their mouths and keep their heads down to keep their jobs. By the time Raya and the Last Dragon was completed, Lee's nightmarish team was in place to reimagine Disney animation. And if you've been paying attention to the stories that this channel and others associated with it have been doing, this is the exact same thing that has happened in the video game industry, the comics industry, etc., etc. The box office thud heard round the kingdom. Unfortunately, the box office success or failure, depending on who you ask, of Raya the Last Dragon was and remains unclear. It was the first Disney animated feature to return to theaters after the COVID-19 pandemic. Disney saw Raya as a critical success. Much like Star Wars The Force Awakens, Raya and the Last Dragon came out to critical acclaim with a 93% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. But what did paying audiences think? I think though very subtle, Raya's storytelling was infused with what many Disney naysayers consider woke storytelling. Yeah. Despite the critical acclaim, it is widely believed that the film marked the start of a downward box office trend. Though very subtle, Raya's story was infused with what many naysayers consider woke story. I can't say it without laughing. I'm sorry. Consider woke storytelling as the reason for the financial spiral. And of course, woke storytelling does not mean traditionally stay woke, brother. Social awareness wokeness. It means LGBTQIA plus whatever propaganda, neo-Marxism, identity politics, all the fun things that they put in everything. This was part of a trend that permeated all of Disney's brands, including Marvel and Star Wars franchises. Right. The first change started way back with Ralph Breaks the Internet and its trend with the absence of a villain. Here, Raya and how many times have you heard them say, "Oh, there's no good and evil"? But even in Star Wars now, "Oh, no, it's a lot of black and white." Okay. Here, Raya and her squad work together to overcome and defeat a mystical force. Secondly, the portrayal of female characters as strong leaders, also known as girl bosses, even though I feel like women have been depicted strongly before, but whatever. This is like the over-the-head mallet-hitting woman girl boss. Raya and Amari, both women warriors, take charge in the fight against the mysterious force. Third is the diminished role of the men in Disney films. Male warriors are not exactly seen as equal or stronger fighters than the leads. According to some sources, specific measures were taken to emasculate all male. Well, that sounds familiar. To emasculate all the male characters. In Raya, no man came to her aid when she was beaten, because they weren't allowed to. We know that. It was either another female or the character's intestinal fortitude. Okay. Any notion to elevate a male character was directly criticized for promoting misogynistic tropes and was immediately removed. This is not an understatement, and capital letters and exclamation marks. So yeah, okay, I get it. Raya and the Last Dragon was made with an estimated budget of 120 to 150 million and earned 116 million. Yeah, that's a horrible loss, especially when you add in that they doubled that budget advertising. It was also part of the Disney Premier Access program, Disney Premier Access promotion, which allowed Disney Plus subscribers to watch Raya on the platform for $29.99. Jesus Christ. On the same day as its theatrical release, a similar strategy to that of live action Mulan. The results were also disappointing. Yeah, I should think so. That's beautiful. That's what Mickey's doing here is what they're doing across all pop culture battlefields, for lack of a better term. Unlike the release of Mulan, The Mandalorian, and Pixar's Soul, Disney Plus gained no meaningful boost in new subscribers from Disney Premier Access for Raya. In fact, the total number of purchases made for Premier Access had dropped by 30% compared to the initial sales generated by the release of Mulan. Again, Raya and the Last Dragon was a financial disaster, and instead of blaming the film's subtle woke messaging, Disney blamed COVID. Oh, and all of them blamed COVID for a good long time. Trust me, it wasn't COVID. Encanto was the next Disney animated feature. Like Raya and the Last Dragon, the production cost for the feature was 120 to 150 million. Encanto earned close to 230 million in total, 96 million domestic, which is considered both a critical and financial success. What happened? So maybe Lee's new woke crew are geniuses? Not so fast, because Encanto was a musical. It required a longer production time than Raya and the Last Dragon. Its production took 5 years, and Raya took 3. Lasseter was still in charge during half of its production. He had his hand-picked creative team running it all. By the time he was fired, the story was locked down and the songs were in place. The production of Encanto was like a high-speed train with the pandemic barely slowing it down. This is very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy 3, where a lot of that was done years before, and that's why it was one of the only profitable MCU movies in all of 2023 was Guardians, and that's because really it was a holdover movie. Most critics, along with the youthful audience, agreed that the film's success is primarily due to Lin-Manuel Miranda's catchy sing-along style songs. Allening notes that his child, no, not X-Ray Girl, but his other child, my child, still makes me play its soundtrack on long trips. I also credit the beautiful location and dynamic character design. In other words, the production was an unstoppable force that remained immune and untouched by Lee's incoming DEI recruits. Riding high on the success of Encanto comes Strange World. And that's the one where they really were just like, here's our gay, disabled characters, queer characters. Let me be clear. And of course, we can see something like that. Let me be clear. Many sources tell me that Jennifer Lee and her crew were incredibly optimistic about the success that would soon be Strange Worlds, as it would be the first film with Lee's fingerprints all over it. With the new crew of activist millennials and hand-picked writers and directors in place, Strange World would be the start of DEI's, that's funny, new slate of socially conscious films for children, i.e. propaganda films that groom your children for all manner of topics that they probably aren't ready for, and that you certainly would want to be the first person to start that conversation, not a fucking Disney movie. That being said, of course they thought it was going to be a success. First of all, half of these Looney Tunes actually think they're doing good, right? There's nothing more sadistic than someone who actually thinks they're doing something that's helping you and is actually actively harming everything. The other, it's an echo chamber. Listen, anyone that said anything otherwise was cast out or fired or anything in between. Of course, when they're only talking to each other, they think it's going to be good. Raya co-writer Qui Nguyen returned on his sophomore venture to both write and direct Strange World, once again under the supervision of veteran animation director Don Hall. According to Variety, under Lee's leadership, the production cost of Strange World ballooned to 180 million. And remember, we just saw 2 examples of movies being made between 120 million and 150. This one, under someone who's inept, ballooned up to 180 million. It also marked new territory story-wise for Disney Animation. Of course, we already talked about the absence of a villain, unless you consider climate change a villain, and we know who does. But now was its environmental story that served as an allegory of our catastrophic reliance on fossil fuels. Who needs energy anyway? And everyone lived happily ever after. Yes, because even if, just spoiler, if America, United Kingdom, and all of our countries stopped ever using another fossil fuel again, 90% of all the other pollutants would still be going. Look into what everyone else is using for fuel. Meanwhile, up in Imagerville, Pixar had been secretly slipping LGBT characters into the background of its films. In the not-so-secret gay agenda. In Toy Story 4, there was a pair of lesbian mommies picking up their kids. Onward had a self-identifying lesbian cop. Lastly, Lightyear featured a lesbian commander, Alicia, who had a pregnant wife, and featured Pixar's first same-sex kiss. All of this probably cut out for Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, Emirate Arab, all the things that they cancel out, like all the Star Wars movies, when they shrink them, China, when they shrink them, Black Panther, shrink them on the posters. These scenes that they talk about and they're so proud of, they get cut out in all those countries. Arab Emirates was what I was going for there. Anyway, let's see. Let's go on to this third one. So Strange New World was the first real big backfire, and now we're seeing it was the first one that was 100% under Jennifer Lee's control. Right? Wrong? Such is a debate for another time. What's not being debated is the inclusion of the LGBT, exclusively L, themes was interpreted as Pixar's deliberate attempt to alienate its conservative audiences from its brand. Who needs them anyway, right? Well, and that's one thing we've seen across the board, be it what we're just finding out about Sweet Baby Inc. in the video game realm, what already happened in the comic realm, what's happened in this continue to happen in the movie realm. Yes, they want to openly alienate, piss off, and get rid of their core demographic people because, spoiler again, most of it is a lot of white men. And men in general, and they really don't like men of any color. Nothing more threatening to any of this than a strong black man, which is why they take the chance why they emasculate them at every chance they can get. Look into that. That's a whole nother thing. So this all tracks with everything. Who needs them anyway, right? As they say, money talks, and this new direction led to a steady decline in Pixar's box office totals, which continues today. By reimagining Tomorrow, Strange World was Disney's first foray into the inclusion of an openly gay character with Searcher's son, Ethan, who is an awkward teen trying to get advice from his father about what to do with his crush, Diazo. Ethan would later go to his grandfather, Jaeger, for advice on his burgeoning relationship. Hall described Ethan's sexual identity as merely an aspect of his character, like any other personal trait. In an interview with Variety, he states, his gayness is part of him. He's also bold and wildly empathetic, which is why he becomes sort of a conversationalist in our film, he added. Also, he's impulsive as teenagers kind of are, so to us, he was just kind of flesh and blood, well-rounded character. I think we can't wait for the world to embrace him like we did. Right or wrong, the inclusion of openly gay characters did not exactly draw the audience. Again, when we say grooming, at least when I say grooming, I don't mean they're trying to make your kids gay, although I'm sure that definitely might be a component. Most of the time, it's grooming them to have conversations about subjects that most parents don't exactly want to be started when they take them to a Pixar movie or a Disney movie. Yes, gay people exist. No, there's nothing wrong, at least in my eyes, with being gay. There is a fucking thing wrong with it when you start trying to talk and preach to people's children, especially when a vast majority of the audience might not think it's okay. And that is what you have to accept. You can't be the arbiter, but that's the thing. They think they are the arbiter, and they, as we will come to find out, if not just in here, in every other, they will force the change, or at least attempt to force it. Unfortunately, Strange, and surprising no one, I will add, unfortunately, Strange World was a complete and utter failure, and Disney executives knew it. It would be long before the release of the film, evidenced by the slashing of its marketing budget and modest press tour and premiere. The movie came out on Thanksgiving weekend and limped in for an 18 million, 12 million domestic. Oof, that's fucking horrible. We can take the film's LGBT theme decimated the international box office as multiple countries refused to show Strange World. This box office disaster ultimately lost Disney over $100 million when it was all finally said and done. Probably more. We know how they obfuscate. The return to Disney animation after a very long Thanksgiving was not good. That Monday, the staff was greeted with a very gloom Zoom call as a way to soothe everyone's feeling. One source tells us that the Disney executive's message is essentially, this is a bummer, but the message is important, and we will press on with it. Of course they will, because you double down in the face of failure. Clearly, the lesson was not learned, and Disney Animation would suffer its subsequent massive failure with Wish, where more people were agreeing with the villain because, again, they are so screwed up in their ethics and their values, they can't even write villains. And a little tease for the next one. In the next Disney Files, which would be part 5, we will show how Jennifer Lee took it upon herself to sit on Walt's throne. How dare you? How dare you stood where he stood? And forge a new legacy for herself and Disney Animation. Also, I made a big mistake in describing the production disaster that was Wish in a way that will surprise you as it did me. And please, if you work in the industry, contact them. Go to Film Threats website. If you got horror stories, if you got the outs, if you got the receipts, because people on YouTube can talk about this all we want. And yes, we are all helping. And if you have a channel, you need to be talking about this, sharing Alan's the D files and directing people to this, because this is the truth and what's going on. But you know who would really help is the people that are actually doing and are being affected by this. You guys need to start speaking out, because this walking on eggshells, you're going to lose it all anyway. You won't have a job to hold on to much longer if you keep letting them do this. We're just not going to come back. We are right at the edge. So you need to start speaking up. If you've made it this long, thank you. I think if you have and you've been watching the other videos on the channels, you can now see this isn't some conspiracy, but this neo-Marxist DEI inclusion fest has come from the top down and the bottom up. It's coming on every facet, from comics, video games, as we've just seen, movies, as it's continuous and the biggest, everyone is seeing it now. It's on every level. There is no escape. They won't stop. They just double down. They fail upwards and outwards. Remember the names and speak out if you know about this. I guess I've said what I've said. Say what you're going to say in the comments. Make sure to like, share, and sub. If you've done that, thank you. If you're going to do that, thank you. And bye.
Well, bye.